CEO of PayPal, Dan Schulman, joins me now. Dan, you act as a bank to more than 300,000 real American small businesses. You know what it's like for those who don't have relationships with these big banks. You know what it's like for those businesses shut down. Paint us a picture.
Yeah. Well, we actually have relationships with over 10 million small business merchants in the United States, over 25 million globally. But what you were referring to, Stephanie, is the fact that we actually are one of the top 5 providers of working capital to small businesses in the United States. We have provided over $15 billion of loans to small businesses, 900,000 of them to 300,000 businesses. And the really important thing to understand is that we're addressing a segment of the market that banks traditionally don't. In fact, 70% of our loans are to the 30% of counties where 10 or more banks have closed branches. Those are typically lower income neighborhoods, minority owned businesses disproportionately. And that's where we provide loans and where PayPal can really provide value added.
Tell us what it's like in those communities from a health and an economic perspective. Are you concerned that these communities are being disproportionately impacted? And what could they look like on the other side of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like so many are talking about right now, now is the time for businesses who are financially strong to step up and help these communities, for the government to step up. And I'm very pleased what's happening in Washington. We've worked quite closely with the Treasury Department, with the SBA, with a lot of congressional leaders, because they also recognize that many of these underserved communities, and by the way, Stephanie, it's something like 70 million adults are financially underserved. Something like 2/3 of all Americans struggle to make ends meet. And this was before the crisis. So you can only imagine the pain and anxiety and suffering that's going on today within those communities. That's why we lobbied so hard. It's why Treasury and the SBA agreed that we should be able to provide this Paycheck Protection Program and start getting money out to these small businesses in these underserved communities as soon as possible. I think every single day matters here.
But Dan,
and we are ready to go. Go ahead, Stephanie.
But Dan, it's not an unlimited amount of money. Are you concerned that the wording in the PPP program is written in such a way that it doesn't put those who are most in need at the front of the line? When it was written first, the idea was service businesses whose revenues are down 50% or more. They changed that language, not with any bad intention, but they changed the language to have less in there because they wanted the money to get out quicker. And in changing the language, now all sorts of business that have only been marginally impacted by the coronavirus have been first in line to get access to those forgivable loans. What does that do to all those who need it most?
Yeah, well, I think part of the reason you started to see that is that banks have traditionally served somewhat larger clientele. Part of the reason why Treasury and the SBA were so excited to work with PayPal is that we serve a different clientele. As I mentioned, 70% of our loans are into those lower income neighborhoods. And our typical working capital loan, on average, is about $25,000. It's much different than banks that are $100,000 or more. And so we are going to very rapidly move into those neighborhoods, those businesses that are not being served today by the Paycheck Protection Program, and be able to offer those businesses an ability, a streamlined application. The SBA says after a business has been approved for a loan, that you'll get funds to them within 10 days. we believe we can get funds to those business customers within 24 hours. And so these are businesses, again, that are not being served today. And we think we have a tremendous obligation to step in and to help as soon as possible.
Dan, are you concerned that these businesses will be forced to shut down? If we don't know how long they're going to have to be closed, if you're a restaurant, a barber shop, a fitness center, this loan is forgivable and you only get the money for a short period of time. You need to maintain full payroll of all of your employees. Are you concerned that a lot of these small businesses aren't going to apply because they have no idea what this is going to look like?
I don't think there's going to be a shortage of demand for these loans. I think you've got small businesses lining up. The terms are quite favorable. I think the government has done a good job on that. There's forgiveness on the loan if you maintain employees, but the actual terms of the loan are also very favorable. 1% interest, forgivable for up to 6 months. And so I think the way that the program has been structured is right for the crisis that we're in right now. If it extends and goes beyond, I think we'll need to make adjustments. But for right now, you've got good, solid terms. I think there is going to be enough money. And if there isn't enough money, I'm sure Congress and Treasury will work a solution to prove additional money, because nothing can be more important than getting our small businesses the money they need to get through this crisis. Their services are needed. It's just a matter of being able to get them through this time period right now. And that's what we're all focused on.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.